First 2 pages that I wrote did not print, so I'm reading it off my iPad briefly. But like I said in the last meeting, I've only shared my testimony one time privately, and I've been dreading today. I still feel embarrassed and ashamed of what I'm going to say, and I don't know if it's worse that, honestly, a lot of y'all are still kind of strangers, don't really know me that well, or the fact that some of you are my closest family. But I stayed up till 2 a.m. this morning trying to finish this. And I'm going to read it just so that I can get through it and stay on track. And I don't feel like I got a great testimony. I feel honestly ridiculous being up here. But in an attempt to not be a hypocrite, I'm taking my own advice and saying I don't get to decide if it's impactful. And I feel like as a leader of this chapter, y'all have a right to know who's standing in front of you. So I'm going to start at the beginning-ish. I was raised south of Ringgold by 2 loving parents who were self-employed. They instilled some great qualities and values, such as not being scared of hard work and the fact that your handshake and your word are all that matters. 2 of my favorite sayings from my dad growing up was that if you got a shitty job, just get shitty with it. And just because it's the law or the rules doesn't make it right. Hitler had all kinds of laws. Be honest with you, my teachers did not appreciate when I told them that. But my dad wasn't and isn't wrong about that fact. But like all parents, they were also great examples of how not to act or what not to do. But regardless of that, I've never once doubted for 1 minute that my parents loved me and would do absolutely anything to help me. While I don't remember my dad going to church with us except on Christmas and Easter, which is typical of a lot of dads today even, my mom sent me to vacation Bible schools, and we would go to church fairly often. But not Sunday school, just church. Occasionally we'd go to Sunday school, but not at the point that I really remember. So I can say, without a doubt, that had a good, supportive foundation. I've always believed in God and Jesus. As a kid, even as an adult, I kind of, but not really knew about Him, because I didn't read the Bible. I don't know the Bible stories. And as an adult, I feel like it's typical for most men, because I invite somebody to Sunday school, and like, well, we really don't know that. I'm like, look, I definitely don't know it. My 10-year-old has more biblical knowledge than I do. But I've never doubted that God and Jesus were real. I've never doubted that they are who they say they are, and they've done everything in the Bible. But once I got past a certain age, I was a good kid. Some people, my dad would attest to the fact that I might have been a bad kid at some point. But once I got at a certain age, I was a good kid. I didn't and still don't drink, don't smoke, don't dip, don't do drugs, I don't whore around. Culturally speaking, I was, and I still am, a good guy. My wife is the luckiest woman in the world since she has been with me since high school. She's the only woman I've ever really kissed and the only person I've ever been with. And to be honest, we really don't argue. When we do, it's nothing major, largely because I'm man enough to know she's wrong. But I'll admit fault just to shut her up. Yeah. Again, I'm a good guy. I'm such a good guy with such a blessed life and a great family that my friend who struggles with alcohol addiction could not imagine that I have any problems, especially some of the same ones as him. Despite me seeing him go to rehab repeatedly, because I can literally see into his house from anywhere in my house, I never shared my story with him. And then one day, he told me that he almost jumped off of his hotel balcony to kill himself. And the only reason he didn't was because his kids were old enough to remember him. I then told him what I'm going to tell you. I've never struggled with drug addiction or alcohol addiction. I've just never even been tempted by it. But my whole life, I've struggled with porn addiction. And I too thought about taking my life at one point. Y'all don't realize how embarrassing and pathetic I feel just saying that. Knowing how much God has done for me and to think that I was going to let Satan happen. I've never, ever thought I'd be there. I can bet you all the money in the world that not a single person alive would have thought or think that of me. It's really crazy. But that is how quickly Satan can twist you if you don't let Jesus carry you in your burdens. We have to help each other not get to that point. And we can only do that by being man enough to let go of our pride and ego and to share our story with one another so that we know we don't carry these feelings and experiences alone. So back to my story. The earliest memory of porn that I have, I was in my dad's dump truck. I had to be 8 or 10 years old. I was getting gas at Cash Corner, or he was, and I was told to sit in the truck. Well, as a kid, it takes a long time to fill up an 18-wheeler. Very long time. So I got bored, and I found a magazine, and I started reading it. Well, then the store owner hops up on the side, Mr. Gerald Ewan, and says, "Hey, what are you doing?" And then he looks at what I'm doing, and he quickly grabs my magazine. I'm like, "Dude, what's going on?" And I can remember him and my dad laughing about it. And I'm sure it was pretty funny. A few years later, everything made sense in retrospect. I finally started realizing what those pictures were as I got older. And my conclusion, not just because of that, but with that and everything else in the world, my conclusion was that porn is obviously okay. There's nothing wrong with it. And that's great, because at our house, we were fancy and we had dial-up internet. And you know what's on the internet? If you, at that point, were willing to wait like 30 minutes for a 15-second video to load, you could watch porn on the internet. And yeah, it wasn't the best environment as a young teenager, and my mom caught me. And that's really embarrassing. But then we got HBO, late night HBO. Then we got our smartphones. And now porn is everywhere, and it's okay. It's completely normal. Culturally, I'm still a freaking good dude. Because look at all the other stuff I'm not doing. Well, again, I'm a self-diagnosed porn addict. I can talk to my friend who has an alcohol addiction, and we are experiencing the exact same emotions before, during, and after. We justify our addiction the exact same way through the same lies we tell ourselves or the way we blame others or circumstances. We crave our addiction constantly, and when we give in, we then hate ourselves. We feel nothing but shame, disappointment, which then tells us, hell, just keep on going. You've already screwed up. You're not good enough anyways. You're just a letdown, and so forth. It's sad, but also it's amazing at how much we can put ourselves down. And that is why that verse spoke to me so loudly. Porn feeds every wicked desire a man has. And even therapists today will say, but that's okay. It's okay that they do that. But I'm telling you it's not. Like all addictions, it separates you from Jesus. It twists you, it tells you to give in to what you want. And that little voice goes from saying, it's okay, you're still a good person. Everyone does it. You deserve this. To all of a sudden, you're such a disappointment. Your family would be better off without you. God won't keep forgiving you. And how many more times are you going to lie to Him and promise to stop? So Jesus tells us in Mark 8:34, Whoever desires to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. To be honest with you guys, I'm new to the whole Bible reading thing, and I just think it's friggin' awesome that we can see exactly what Jesus said, because His followers took notes. And I can promise you, I don't take notes. So I'm glad I wasn't one of those people, because we wouldn't have His words. But I just think it's amazing that what He said is right there for us to read if we'll just go read it. But there's no guessing, there's no special education needed to figure out what He's saying. You just got to read it. Anyways, something as seemingly natural and harmless as porn twists me into living for myself and feeding my desires instead of my needs. But we are to deny ourselves. I am to deny myself and follow Him. And that same mindset and desire for what I want gave me the hubris to think I could literally change the world. So I sold my businesses and convinced the people closest to me to help fund a new business, to help politicians actually do their jobs and represent their constituents. I worked with campaigns from California, Missouri, Wisconsin, or Michigan, I forget which one of the states. And then I came back to Louisiana because I was shown a way to fast track a government contract and achieve my dreams. And I'm noticing a lot of me and my in this. Well, being raised to honor my word, I took people at their word. And surprisingly, very few people in public office are actually truthful. So I was told where to go. So I was, it was happening, that feeling, it was happening. And then the next meeting I was told it wasn't. If you're self-employed, odds are you've been there. You felt like you lost everything, or you've been on the brink of losing it. And it's not a fun place to be. I was done. I lost all my money. I lost other people's money. I didn't have any money left. I didn't have anywhere else to go. I had no plan. I had no clue. I was lost in every single sense of the word. The hardest call I ever made was to my wife. To tell her to take all the cash, put it in the bank, use all the cash back on the credit cards to reduce their payments, because I don't know if we're going to be able to pay for food and stuff like that next month, much less our house note. And you have to understand, at this point, and I still do, I had a great life. I have a great wife, wonderful son, great parents, a great house. My son has awesome stuff. I'm a Lego fan. He has all the Lego stuff I wish I had. It has it all. I had it all because God has always blessed me beyond what I deserve. Well, now, because of the choices I made, my wife and son were about to potentially be homeless and lose their stuff. Because I lost our money. I lost other people's money. Would you mind giving me something like this? I'm sorry. It was my fault. Thanks, Tyler. Appreciate that. It was my fault that we were in this situation. It's just meaningless stuff. But as a man, my family was losing their comforts in life because of my decisions. So that night, I'm not going to say that I really thought about killing myself because I'm too ashamed to admit that I really did. But I'm not going to say that I didn't. And as a man, I had to fix the problem. And the only path, the only solution I saw was my life insurance policy. It would pay all my debts, it would make people whole, and it would let my wife and son start over with someone else on solid ground. I'm sorry. So I looked at my gun and was pretty sure that life insurance wouldn't pay out for suicide. So that option wasn't there. So then I think about my drive home from Baton Rouge. I could drive real fast and I could aim for a tree. But quite frankly, I'm a coward. And what if I don't die? That would suck. Then I'd have a huge hospital bill, I'd have to get another vehicle, and I probably won't even be able to be a Walmart greeter because of all the injuries I sustained. But again, despite all this, I'm a good Christian dude. Yet I saw no other way out of that situation that I had put my family in. I was and still feel like I'm a complete and total failure. And my family is still to this day paying the price. And for some reason that night, I called my brother-in-law, who's a pastor. Through my tears and uncomfortable breathing, it was worse than all this. I'm explaining how I cost his sister everything. And when I'm done, the first thing I remember him saying is, "Are you saved? Because you don't sound like it." And honestly, it took me off guard. I kind of laughed at him. And I was like, "Dude, I've been baptized in the Baptist church, Catholic church, I think even the Methodist church. I'm good." But then he explained to me the difference between knowing about Jesus and actually knowing Jesus. He prayed for me on the phone, and then he told me how to and what to pray for when we got done talking. But before he hung up, he asked if I was okay and if he needed to stay on the line. Knowing what he meant, I was like, dude, I'm not going to kill myself. I'd never do that. So after that lie, for the first time, I prayed with my knees on the ground. Like I'm telling you, I went full Hollywood-style prayer. And prayed out loud as someone who had no other way, because I didn't have another way. I was lost and needing direction. And he delivered for me. Some people had watched me over the years conduct my business, but had always stayed at arm's length. All of a sudden, they started helping me. And God used them to save my family's stuff and answer my prayers. But when I came back home and wanted to develop that relationship with Jesus that I found that night, I didn't know how. So growing up, church, honestly, I don't feel like it was a priority for my family. Learning and reading the Bible, we didn't really do that. So I came back home and I didn't really have a foundation. I had no idea how to actually develop a relationship with Jesus. It's not like I could call him on the phone. It's not like I could stop by his house. Like, how do you do that? All I could do was go back to what I was doing. And at that time, my wife and I were occasionally going to a church that just wasn't right for us. She and my son didn't enjoy it, so I had a fight with them just to try to get them to go. So our compromise was, we'll just watch it online. And I'm telling you, I needed a church because I had a desire, but I didn't know how. I didn't need the building. I didn't need the tradition. I didn't need the pageantry. I didn't need a great rock band on Sunday morning. I needed help studying the Bible. And I needed help learning how to figure out who Jesus actually was. So through a series of events, we ended up at our current church where my entire family looks forward to Sunday morning and Wednesday night. We're not just looking forward to church service and hearing the sermon. We're looking forward to getting to know more about Jesus and growing our relationship with him through studying and discussions in our Sunday school class and Bible studies. If you don't look forward to those 2 days of the week, we need to have a conversation. Because I try my best to schedule my meetings to where I'm not missing those times. But if you're not doing the same thing, I want to help reignite that fire inside of you so that you want to learn about him and share him with everyone you can. You prioritize hunting, fishing, football, baseball, work, whatever it is you prioritize, you make time for. But are we prioritizing time with Jesus? That's basically the story I share with my friend. He and I can talk about addiction. And I'm trying to admit everything to more people so that I can now have that relationship with more people to talk about these. Even complete strangers I've opened up to, just to try to have that commonality so that if they need to talk to somebody, I'm there for them. We can talk about the shame, the embarrassment. And if I'd shared my story with him sooner, he may not have thought about jumping off that balcony. He may have instead picked up the phone and called me. As I don't know who will be back, and obviously I thought there might be more people, but it is what it is. I do want everybody to get a few key things from this. Number one, if you don't have one yet, I hope you found a wife like mine. I know she'd rather us live with my parents than me not be here. And I don't care how great the in-laws are, you don't want to live with them. And not many wives would stick through what she has, and I'm eternally grateful for God for gifting her to me in this life. Number two, porn is available to every kid and adult 24/7 for free. Culturally, it is okay and even encouraged by sites like OnlyFans that promises riches in exchange for your daughters and granddaughters to become porn stars. It is even expected that boys and men watch porn. But it is a rot that festers and subtly influences us to crave and give in to our wicked desires instead of denying ourselves for Jesus. Number three, I think the greatest lie I was ever told was by people who were well-intentioned but never read the Bible for themselves. The lie is, God will never give you more than you can handle. Evidently, I did not put that in there. Well, the actual scripture is 1 Corinthians 10:13. No temptation has come upon you except what is common to humanity. But God is faithful. He will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you are able. But with the temptation, he will also provide the way out so that you may be able to bear it. But with the temptation, he will provide the way out. So we can't handle it. We can only handle it with God because he can handle it. As men, we carry the burden of the whole family. We carry the world on our backs. We put the world on ourselves and we can't handle it. We aren't supposed to, and we shouldn't even try. He said to place our burdens at his feet. If you try to carry everything, you're going to find yourself where I was. And I pray that you never do. It's embarrassing to tell you that I let myself get there. And I don't want you to experience that. So please don't carry your burdens alone. Talk to Jesus and let him carry them. Which leads me to number 4. You can't really get to know someone if you don't try to. So look at the person sitting across from you right now. You've got to actually talk about things beyond the surface to get to know them. As a dad, I could be a deadbeat dad. I could know who my son is. But if I don't make an effort to really talk to him and engage with him, I don't really know my son. Jesus is the same way. He's chasing after you. He is right here, right now, with open arms. He is wanting to embrace you. And he's done the work. But are we listening and are we responding to him? Which that is an ongoing answer, by the way. So going to church isn't necessarily the answer. To me, just going to church would be like seeing your kids on Thanksgiving and Christmas and then telling everybody y'all have a great relationship. It's about opening the Bible and reading his word. It's praying constantly, talking to Jesus, and then paying attention to what happens. He will give you what you need and even what you want, but he'll give it to you when you need it and when you can handle it. His timing is always right. And that leads me to point 5. If you read the Bible, you realize how much we truly are children of God. He literally treats us like we have to treat our kids, or at least how I treat mine. We tell our kids, don't do that. What do? They go do it. And then they typically blame us in some way for the thing that they did that we told them not to do. When we give them their punishment, it doesn't mean we love them any less. And oftentimes we don't really punish them to the full extent that we said we would. So I'll demonstrate this to you. You know the story of Adam and Eve, but do you know exactly what Adam said to God afterwards? The woman whom you gave me, you gave her to me, God. She tempted me. She gave it to me. And then, yeah, I ate it. So Adam and Eve were punished for the disobedience. But God, like all good fathers, showed them mercy. They still had their punishment, but they had made themselves clothes of leaves, which were probably very itchy and not very good. So in God's mercy, he gave them proper clothes before sending them out. He did the same thing with Cain. Cain still had his punishment, but he showed him mercy by marking Cain so that no one would kill him, so that Cain could wander the earth without fear of death. That is a merciful and loving Father. And that theme is all throughout the Bible. But it's also worth noting that Adam, Eve, and Cain literally spoke with God, something that I've not had the experience of, and they still sinned. The disciples were literally able to wrap their hands around the neck of Jesus, witness dead people come back to life, and yet they still sinned and they still doubted, with God right in front of their face, in their arms. Again, we are children. It is really hard to do, especially for men who think we have to carry everything and have all the answers and have a plan at all times. But we have to humble ourselves and realize we are God's children. And we act like it. We act like children because we are children. And like, in my mind, we have got to try. If I had that mentality, I might not have been where I was. And I feel like it's important every single day I try to think about me not being in control, but literally I'm a kid getting disciplined. So number 6, I've had people that I try getting to come to church with me because my church has shown me how to cultivate my personal relationship with Jesus. And I love that my pastor says we're not religious. We aren't there for church tradition. We are there to connect with Jesus on a personal level. Some of those people remind me that I found my desire for Jesus before I started going to that church. They don't need to go to church to have a relationship with Jesus and feel like I do, which is 110% true. But it's because of my relationship with Jesus and desire to know him better that I want to be at church. I get to spend time with men and women like those of you in this room who are just trying to learn more about our Savior. They've shown me how to actually study the Bible in his word. And that's something I couldn't do on my own. And through conversations and small groups, where sinners, just like all of us, sit around and read Scripture and then talk about it, God is revealing himself more and more to me. Which brings me to point 7, which is my last point if you're wondering. My wife's back there like, is this guy ever going to shut up? This is why you don't give a Harrison a microphone right here. So you can compare yourself to someone or let others do that for you and come to the conclusion that you're a good person, because you probably are, but you're still a sinner. Culturally, you can be the best person on this earth, but you're still a sinner. And you have a one-way ticket to hell if you don't have a personal relationship with Jesus. So whether you believe it or not is irrelevant. Your belief that hell is real is not a requirement of you ending up there. You can't sit there and say, well, if so-and-so is going to heaven, so am I. I know I'm better than them. It doesn't work that way. Getting into heaven isn't a comparison game. It's not like we're running from a bear and I've just got to be quicker than Kevin. It don't work that way. It's about you and Jesus. He literally said he is the only way, and no one gets to the Father but through him. So if you're unsure of where you're going, or you're not satisfied with your relationship with Jesus, I want to talk. I'm not at all qualified, but I am here and will help try to get this moving in the right direction. Because in the end, we've all heard the scripture, we want Jesus to say to us when we die, well done, good and faithful servant. But in the less talked about part of Matthew, Jesus also said this. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of the Father in heaven. On that day, many will say to me, Lord, Lord, didn't we prophesy in your name? Did I not drive out demons in your name and do miracles in your name? Then Jesus said, I will announce to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, lawbreakers. I never knew you. Depart from me. Honestly, that scared the crap out of me whenever I read it. Nobody really talks about that passage, but again, that's just one of those that jumped out at me. And that's why I'm here today. That's why I undertook the effort of starting this chapter, because I selfishly want another outlet to learn more about Jesus by hearing how he's moving in other people's lives. That's the power of the testimony. I get to learn from everybody else. And Jesus reveals himself through other people. So we're called to make disciples, and we can't do that if we don't know who we are making disciples for. That hole you're feeling with porn, alcohol, drugs, whatever it is, struggling with depression, not feeling fulfilled, feeling like you don't have a purpose. You can't make that better. Nothing on this earth can make you whole. You'll just find something else to replace it with. But my God can. If you take the first step, he will fill that emptiness in you with a flame of desire for him. You just have to say, here I am, God, use me. And if you take the first step, he will fill that emptiness in you. I already said that, I'm sorry. But don't think all of your problems magically go away. You still have consequences for your actions. The difference is, like me, you learn to find joy now when you're going through those difficult times. And with that, I'll finally conclude with the story of Mike Tyson. He was talking on a podcast with a current boxer about that guy's success. And Mike Tyson told him that everything he was getting right now was because he was favored or valued by God. But that also meant that he was favored and valued by the devil. So he better get ready, because the devil's coming with everything he's got. Now, I'm sorry I couldn't say that with a Mike Tyson list to make it more authentic. But I never dreamed Mike Tyson would be somebody to quote in a Bible class. But that spoke to me again. So as you leave today and every single day, don't be ashamed to talk about Jesus as much as you talk about fishing, hunting, football, baseball, politics, whatever it is you prioritize. Share your story, because you never know how God will use it. He may use it to save a neighbor's, a friend's, or a family member's life, because only He truly knows what they're going through. So that's the end of my testimony. Sorry for the way it is, but to wrap up the meeting, remember the materials in the back are for you to share with others. I'd also like to have a banner made for us to put outside, directing people to the door and advertising the meeting. I don't have it designed, and I haven't talked to a company yet for pricing. But if you'd like to donate towards that sign, please let my wife know at the table, and she'll take down your information. And when we do get the design and the pricing, I'll contact you, and we can just divide the cost between everybody that's willing to donate. So thank y'all for coming, and I hope to see y'all on the 19th to hear Josh's testimony. Thank you.